Welcome to Are We the Only Ones? I'm Kathy, and today I want to talk about Adelita Grijalva getting sworn in today at 4 p.m. East Coast time, which means if you're in California like me, at 1 p.m., we get to lock in and recognize that this time has come. The moment that we have been waiting for so long, trying to keep the government open, trying to, remember all of this ICE activity is to distract us from the Epstein files. And the vote that we needed to force the document release and to force transparency, basically, is coming today. So Speaker Mike Johnson had closed the government down for, I believe it's been almost 90 days now. And I want you to understand how crazy that is, that the people that were elected to lead got paid to put us in danger while we fly, to starve the poorest of us, to protect a pedophile. I just want you to understand this, like to the level that Ghislane Maxwell has been treated so well at the new prison that she's been transferred to, that like the staff, like some high level staff, like I don't know if it's the warden, but somewhere high up was like, I'm sick of being her bitch. That level. She's getting food, custom like delivery food to her cell. She gets to stay in the yard after everybody's has to come back in. She can stay out there on her own accord longer. She has access to going to the administrative offices in the prison to use the printers, and they have to help her print out any documents that will help her commute her sentence. These are among the things that I recall from reading that I was just like, whoa, because usually somebody who is alleged to have child sex crimes is not allowed to be in a minimum security situation. So she's been convicted of it. So she's definitely not supposed to be. So not only is she in a minimum, it's even lesser than that. So she has more freedom than somebody that's in a minimum security prison. So it is not in dispute that she did these things. It's not like she's convicted, I would say to a certain extent, admitted, right? We have a lot of documents, we have a lot of photographs, and we have a lot of testimony. So that is not in question. The question is, why are they protecting her to this level? So there was a report that I just saw, CBS is reporting it, that there's an email that Jeffrey Epstein says that Donald Trump knew that he was hanging, that these girls were underage, and that he even says that Donald Trump spent hours of alone time with one of the underage girls that became later known as one of the actual victims in the entire sort of victim count. So today's a big day. For me, it's been tough. I was trying to do daily minis, but I was going through a little bit of anxiety because my husband had a work trip where he had to take 4 flights. He's going to a work retreat first for the law firm, and then he was going to another like all hands meeting in their headquarters, which happens to be in Houston, Texas, which is like very stressful because that airport was where all the lines that were like really bad, 4 hours of people waiting on like the curb, trying to like switch back in, get into the airport. So then I had asked my husband to take out a life insurance policy because I was terrified because he was going to fly with all these shortages, and there had just been a plane crash the day before. That was like, LAX was one of the airports that was, one of the points for that plane that had crashed. So I was a little stressed out. And then I happened to be keeping attention. And he was like landing, the planes were landing and everything was fine. That was good. But, it's just something that like I've never had to worry about to that extent that I was like, can you please take a life insurance policy just in case, God forbid something happened. But, we're former Marine, military for 9 years. We've gone through a lot of stuff, but like I've never actually like been that, just, when you don't have control, and the people that do have control, you just don't have trust in them. And the government shutdown wasn't necessary, and I felt bad for the air traffic controllers that had been working without pay for days in a row, which is very stressful. Like the burnout, if you know what it's like to be up 14, 16 hours straight and like do a job, you know what it's like. Like you don't really want to put that on people. So the Democrats, 6 Democrats folded, and the government is going to reopen. Justice Brown did a good political maneuver. So the snap stay by the Supreme Court Justice Brown was really smart, because what it did was it kicked it down to the first Court of Appeals, which was a non-MAGA heavy court. So you knew that they were going to follow the law and think about like what a judge is there for is to really like evaluate the situation. What is the legal recourse? What is the correct, and then also like what is the effect of what's going to happen by their judgment. So they are saying that SNAP has to be paid. And so that's why you started hearing a lot of people. Now, it didn't happen all at once, right? So like some people got it. California was funding it either way. And so I remember I heard all the Californians that got their funding and their EBT cards had been loaded. But there were definitely people in other states that had not had their EBT cards loaded. So we were just kind of waiting to hear. And then I heard the Hawaiians got theirs. And then I started slowly hearing like in the south of the Mason-Dixon line, that which is like Virginia, below Virginia. That's, if you don't know where the south of the Mason-Dixon line, that's like, because I lived in Virginia for the year that we had to do military. Eric had to go to, when you're a Marine Corps officer, you have to go to 2 schools, Officer Candidate School, which they call OCS, and then the basic school, which is TBS, and that's after OCS, which is like, OCS is your general like grunt ground force training, officer training, where you like, they drop you off in the middle of Quantico, and there's like all just snakes and whatever, massive spiders and like just terrain. And then you got to go find your way with a compass. You got to find your way through this like forest and mountain terrain. So that's like OCS, so that you learn all that stuff. And then the basic school is where they learn like their specialties. So like my husband was a communications officer, so he was in charge of putting together all the communications, like IT networks. Like they would practice raising bases out of like dirt. All of a sudden you would have to like come up with a plan. So it was good. And you learn a lot. That's how you learn. That's why these officers, when you learn about military officers, when they are all getting called into that meeting, it was like, dude, they all have like major commands they're handling right now. Sorry, this military lingo. Command is like your entire, like if you're a company, it would be like the entire corporation. So it was like, if I say the command, like they're handling the entire corporation right now, think like that, but that's a military. Just like, because most people don't know military, I'm going to put it into like kind of corporate terms. But it's like calling all the CEOs in, and then like they have to run these companies, but these companies are not like internet, social media company. It's not like, things like that. This is like people are using live fire. Like there were days where I had to stress out because, they're doing live fire training today. And like, please don't shoot anybody. Nobody make a mistake. Please, everybody safe. Nobody shoot my husband. Like, it's like stuff like that. Like the things that military families have to go through. Like, you guys don't even know how much, when we talk about invisible labor for women, that's one thing. You have no idea. Invisible labor for military families, you have no idea the stress level that they had to take on the children and the spouses, just the exercises alone, just the practice, and let alone the actual, like when they get sent and we have to say goodbye. We don't see them for like minimum 6 months, sometimes 18 months, sometimes I think the longest I'd ever heard was like 2 years. And then, imagine you just don't know. You have to like tell your kids every day. You know, mommy or daddy is going to be okay. You know, they're thinking about you. They want to get home as soon as possible. Like everybody, you know, when we were on a military base, whenever you hear the national anthem, everybody stops. You have to face wherever the flag is on the base. You put your hand over it, you stop. If you're in a movie theater on the military base, there's always the national anthem that plays before the film. The entire theater stands up and everybody is at attention with their hand over their heart. It is a mandatory thing. So it's cool to see little kids do that. You know, you get like the love of the country, and you love each other and the community, the sacrifice. So when they're going after the VA, and Hegseth is like this guy who was disgraced because he committed sexual assault in the military. And that to me is a very personal thing, because I'm a victim of sexual assault from somebody in the military, and I went to trial. And I got a unanimous decision in my favor, and he admitted to what he had done. So I am very, very in touch with the legal system on different levels, because my husband is a practicing attorney at a very powerful law firm that represented Dominion voting against Fox News and won. And so, you know, that level of law, and then also being on the other side as a victim who actually had to get justice. And so when I see this fight in Congress, you know, a lot of people are really confused, like, how can this be? How can this happen? But this reminded me of the time. So my husband he drafted and passed a law in New York State for military spouses, so they would be able to transfer their licenses when they moved into the state. You don't have to like recertify or relicense if you're like an esthetician, if you're a psychologist or a therapist, whatever. You don't have to like relicense. And by the time you relicense, like you barely have time to work, right? So he helped pass that law. Now, what happened was when he was trying to pass that law, there was a Democrat who was on the floor who would not let that law hit the floor for a vote, or let the bill hit the floor for the vote. I thought that was really weird. And so I was like, this is a military spouses bill in the state where 9/11 happened. I don't understand why this is a problem. And then somehow it got up to Jill Biden. Jill Biden then talked to, I believe, Joe Biden, who was vice president at the time. And then they related to the First Lady's office, Michelle Obama's office, and then she related to President Obama's office. I believe was how it kind of like went. And it happened like, you know, it was a quick relay. And they championed my husband's bill. And once President Obama champions this bill, then of course it has to hit the floor. And the person who was trying to hold it, that didn't want to even allow it to hit the floor, voted for it. And so this is what this feels like with this holdup of the swearing in of, you know, the last, like, this is unheard of, the Speaker Johnson. I just have to wonder, like, what is going on with Speaker Johnson that he would put his reputation and neck on the line for something so insidious as protecting the information about a known notorious pedophile. Like, that's a very strange hill to sort of like lay your political life on and like politically die on, is a very strange hill to do. So you got to wonder, like, what's in his personal life or whatever that's like, that would compel him to want to, whether it be money, whether it be some kind of weird personal whatever, I don't know. Okay. But you got to wonder, like, it's strange, right? Because like for any of us normal people that are very anti-pedophilia, anti-sex crimes, like we would not associate with anybody that was known. And we would also cooperate with anybody. Especially if it's already known, you would just cooperate, because not cooperating would seem like you're an accessory. So that's why I'm sort of like, well, what is going on with this, like, obstruction of justice? You know, and normal people like us, if we were to do something that would be known as obstruction of justice, it would be unacceptable, and we would absolutely be called out for it and held to serious accountable standards. So that's why I want to understand what's happening. And you can tell it's unraveling, because once Andrew Mountbatten Windsor lost his royal protection. Now, when I first asked, you know, I put it forth and I was like, look, the analysis is, for me, was more than just the title. That's a big deal. But it was more about the protection. It wasn't just security, like arm protection. It was protection that I was at the time saying, I don't even know what that fully covers. And now we do. Any story about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is now on the table to be reported on. I just saw a story this morning. His autobiographer is now giving interviews. His biographer is giving stories about Andrew. And there's a lot of prostitution stories. The man is addicted to porn. The man is addicted to sex. Now, I know that something like that, I had also heard that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor had been taken to a brothel when he was 10 years old. And I think that was probably the catalyst of what has caused him all this harm. But that is just for context. That doesn't give an excuse on why a person behaves this way, because there's plenty of people that go through that and don't behave that way. So this is going to be a very interesting kind of turn of events, because by having royal protection stripped from Andrew, it shines the light on America and saying, well, if we're like, oh, America, no kings, blah, 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 right? We're saying no kings protest. Here's the irony about a king doing better than a democracy. So then it challenges that entire notion. And big up props to King Charles, cheers to King Charles, for having the courage, honestly. This is his legacy, is to stand up for what's right, even though it's there's a legacy in the royal family just to protect the royal family's reputation, period, no matter what. This is protecting the reputation in the way that is real, just right, morally correct, which is with transparency. Do I understand the sentiment of people trying to protect themselves and not wanting to release certain things? Yes. But as a former member of the Catholic Church, let me tell you, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So do right. We can allow a certain misstep in the process of trying to find the right path, but to completely hide something that is so heinous it's just going to come to light at some point. So it's going to be known. So you want to be on the right side of history, for sure. There's other reports that say that the pictures that were in Jeffrey Epstein's vault that have to do with Donald Trump are far worse than the ones that Michael Wolff, Trump's biographer, had talked about, where he had seen photos of Trump with underage girls, and it's a picture where he's sitting down and there's a wet spot on his crotch, and then there's definitely underage girls pointing and laughing at him in the photo. They're saying that there's worse photos than the one that Michael Wolff witnessed, and that the file has way worse stuff in there for Donald Trump to be concerned about. So I can only imagine, usually in the sordid history of infamous stuff, whenever they're saying, oh, there's more, and then you imagine what it is, when it actually comes out, for me, it is way worse than I've ever imagined. It is usually 5 times worse than what I was thinking. So in this particular situation, where we know someone like this, his personality is so morally repugnant, and just he doesn't care. He has no empathy for women and caring about their feelings, let alone children. I mean, the man has said how many times that he would date his daughter if she wasn't his daughter. But I'm starting to wonder. I'm just starting to wonder. And so today's a big day. Democracy had a win today. And at 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, I'll be all up on it. 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Maybe take a moment at that time and just revel in democracy at that moment. And look, it's not over. We're going to have to keep fighting, but I have hope, you guys. I have a lot of hope right now. And President Obama has come out and started speaking about it, so he is a great corraler, I would say, right? All right. I will kind of let this percolate and tell me what you guys think. Give me a follow or subscribe on Substack. And I'm really active right now on Instagram. I had a post go crazy viral. So I'm at like 7,000 something followers and I won't stop. So a lot of good conversation over there. Good conversation on TikTok. Until next time.